Good evening, America. Time now is 21:33, and it's the 31st of August, 2025, and it's Sunday. I want to continue my talk about the reptilian, the alpha draconian reptilian agenda. And I know that many of you may think this to be a scientific fiction, but I've done a little bit of research, and I've stated in my previous video on the subject that our world is much more than what scientists have believed it to be in existence. In fact, if it's had 5 previous Earth cycles, live Earth cycles, and we're going on to the 6th cycle, and change over to another axis tilt, supposedly according to the prescriptions of the scientific community. I want to continue with my talk about the destruction of Maldek, which is now presently the asteroid belt in the far reaches of our solar system, and around Saturn and another planet, Neptune, and Uranus. But I want to talk a little bit about the Kuiper Belt, which is controlled by this draconian alpha reptilian empire or species. They originate from the planet Thuban, or adjacent planets that surround the Draco's solar system. I talked about them, the Pleiadians, or they call them the Nordic tall whites. They have their habitat is usually a cold environment, while the reptilian species, they love the warm environment, and so that's why they thrive in a warm climate. Previously on this planet, before humans came on to this world was primarily reptilian, and the adjacent rival of the humanoid species, which were the humans that we are evolved from today, and who are still in an evolution process. Our world was created for a specific reason, and that was for interbreeding. And I'm going to basically touch base on this reptilian species, which was here long before mankind was, or before any mammalian type of creation was. First were the reptilian species, who claimed that this world is theirs, and we take it, and it's our property. We're not allowing puny human beings, to infest it. So we're basically called parasites to those reptilians. I'm going to be very specific to the point that our own DNA composition has the DNA factor in it. Our brain is a triune brain. In other words, there are 3 portions to the brain. The last being the cerebellum, this portion back here, under the brain skull. and it's the third portion is the reptilian species um, portion of our lives. As sometimes many of the reptilians will show their true colors. In other aspects, also as a human being, you tend to shed your skin like reptiles do, especially after you get sunburnt, and you change certain skin colors as well. You also have the spots on your skin. You know, whenever you have toxic chemicals into your body, it becomes like freckles or sunspots or blemishes. I'm going to continue with this. The portion which I wanted to bring about is called the destruction of Maldek and the ice comet attack. Now we have a serious cosmetology or astrophysics situation in the Three-Eye Atlas, supposedly asteroid. Some say it's a comet, but I will say it's a reptilian Syrian warship in disguise, like a Trojan horse, passing through our solar system. Or if it is passing through our solar system, I believe it's just watching us, the human beings. As the reptilians are mortal enemies to the humanoids from way, I would say 45 million to a billion years ago. And they've all had a great war. They basically exterminated about 14 colonies of the Lyrian race, which are human beings or the human species ancestors. And they where they originally came from, or the Lyrian planets, which were all about 14 colonies on different worlds. And then we had the Palladian civilization or empire, which came from the Pleiades. You also had the Vegan or the Vega, and the Zeta Reticuli, whom are basically smaller versions. They look like children, about 2 to 3 feet tall. But let me remind you, let me explain something to you. The tall grays have children as well. They have small versions of themselves in small quantities. Some say they are android types or created species types. They may be, but there are others that are variable species of types of grays and other types of otherworlders. I'm going to continue with this ice comet attack, which is what I believe is going to be happening, or is happening with this Three-Eye Atlas comet or asteroid, and I do believe it is a Trojan horse type warship. And I remind you of the story of the Trojan horse and the city of Troy, when it was introduced into the city, that what came out were not friendlies, but they destroyed the city from within. So I'm going to continue with this story, and I hope that you catch it and analyze it and research it and find out for yourselves. I'm giving a warning to many scientists and government leaders on this planet to keep a watch and a strong alert in such a case where we are due for an invasion or some type of intervention, or for whatever reason, those up there in the heavens or the universe want our resources and our human factors. And it's not because of our good looks, but because we have something that they want, and that's the consciousness, the soul, which they do not have, among other things, which are basically nourishment for those who are of not human form. Besides the resources that we have on Earth, which are gold, silver, minerals, and the water and other resources which they can use for their own worlds and for their own structures. So I'm going to continue with this conversation and this teaching and alertness. I want to talk about the ice comet attack, which created the asteroid belt and the destruction of Maldek, the planet next to Mars. And by the way, both planets, Mars and Maldek, their civilizations used to trade with each other. They were corporate industries in which they traded their resources and to survive as a offshoot of the Illyrian empire. By the way, they were in their traits, they were farmers and land keepers. They believed in the hunter-gatherers and farming and agriculture as a people, and that's what the Draco Alpha Reptilians wanted. They wanted the resources, so they attacked them. First, they gave them a how would you say, a scam. They came in for a trade. They basically broke the trade deal and started stealing their resources, and they eventually destroyed the people. They destroyed three of the colonies, and went after the other two to exterminate them. And some just went on exodus across the universe to try to start a new life. And we've had one incident on the moon in which a rocket was found with a Illyrian pilot, female pilot. They called her Mona Lisa. And either she was found on the moon or on Mars, but the rocket or spaceship or spacecraft was found on the moon, and she was basically mummified. This is a true story. You can find and research it yourself. You just look for Mona Lisa, the woman on the moon. Let me continue. The story, the ice comet attack. In their galactic travels, ever on the lookout for new worlds to conquer, the Draco eventually discovered the Illyrian habitations on Mars and Maldek. I mentioned that. Still considering humans as their enemies, the Dracos designed a plan of attack that had evolved in amazing technology for use in their Star Wars effect. Remember, Ronald Reagan talked about the Star Wars. He talked that what if we had invaders, and this is we're talking about the early 80s. Now this is 2025. How right was he? He was correct in all he had said. And they had evolved in amazing technology for use in their Star Wars. By the way, we are in a galactic war at the present time. We, by the universe, is in a galactic war at the present time. Whether you believe that or not, it's true. What you don't see can't hurt you. But they're out there. They are out there, and there are others among us who are who are mimickers of our form. What you see in front of you is not necessarily what you think you see. So basically, keep that in mind. Okay, let me continue here. They had evolved an amazing technology for use in their Star Wars. They were able to hollow out ice comets, meteors, and asteroids. They created small black holes to pull the comets under. They created small black holes, in other words, to pull in the asteroid. Black holes to pull the comets under directional control, and so were able to use them as weapons. This is how they destroyed the planet Maldek and hit Mars on the side, causing that big fracture on the side of the planet. And that same comet became Venus. To pull the comets under this directional control, and so were able to use them as weapons. They launched our large ice comet at this solar system. As it passed Uranus, it caused the planet to flip on its side. This is Uranus. Flip on its side, and then so that it now rotates horizontally, such with its axis tilt at 98 degrees, according to an article by Andrew Fazekas, published in the National Geographic News on October 11, 2011. Look that up. The National Geographic News on October 11th, 2011. An article by Andrew Fazekas concerning Uranus. The widely accepted theory for how Uranus got knocked over is that a rogue Earth-sized planet slammed into the ice giant billions of years ago. That lost world was mostly likely destroyed on impact, but the 27 known moons of Uranus still rotate around its equator. Zechariah Zitchin explains it this way. In simpler words, it means that in all probability the moons in question of Uranus were created as a result of the collision that knocked Uranus on its side. In press conferences, the NASA scientists were more explicit. A collision with something the size of Earth, traveling at about 40,000 miles per hour, could have done it. They said, according to Gene Moscoli, JD, on the website scienceiq.com, scientists are split as to why Uranus rotates horizontally. A popular theory is that Uranus collided with a large planetary body in the early solar system that in effect knocked it on its side. The comet then passed over very close. The comet then passed very close to Maldek, that that planet which is mysteriously disappeared, which created an enormous electromagnetic stress on the planet and caused it to explode. Many of the Maldekians had already taken refuge on Mars as they saw the comet approaching, but most of the inhabitants of Maldek were wiped out. Fragments of the destroyed planet created the asteroid belt. Some of the fragments were captured by the strong magnetic poles of the gas giants Saturn and Jupiter and became moons of those planets. As the comet passed over close to Mars, it wreaked havoc with the planet's magnetic field, as I said. In other words, it scraped the planet, which is what you see on the side of the planet Mars, which had the effect of stripping off some of the atmosphere and vaporizing the oceans. This killed many and forced the survivors to retreat underground, along with the transplanted Maldekians. In other words, I have said many times before that Mars is inhabited, but they're underground. So our little trip to Mars will find some inhabitants, just like we had the Indians in America by the colonists who came to America. So you will find, how would you say, the indigenous peoples in Mars already inhabiting the underground cities. Now this is basically in tune to what today's news is about, what's going on in Mars and on the planet Moon, on the satellite and arc I call the Moon. It's hollow. It's a hollow satellite, which was basically a carrier. And you notice as the Moon rotates around the Earth that you only see one side of it, not the dark side. And why? I'll tell you why. Because it's like I said, it's a satellite. Oh, it might have millions of years of dust on it, and you hit it with a rocket and it bongs like a bell. Let me continue here. So the survivors retreated underground along with the transplanted Maldekians. In addition, the Martian orbit was pushed farther from the sun. So amazingly, the deadly ice comet achieved its terrible purpose of destroying the human civilizations on both Maldek and Mars. It was an astounding attack when one considers that the comet could only have accomplished its destructive effects on those two planets if its launch was timed in perfect coordination with the orbits of both bodies. This required highly sophisticated. It's kind of strange that this 3-eye atlas is doing the same thing with some of the planets in this solar system, and that it coordinated its view from the Earth behind the sun. So what I would suspect is that they have It's a strategic move by the creators of this asteroid or warship. So I would advise Earth leaders and Earth scientists to keep a close eye on that three-eye atlas, whatever it is, asteroid or warship. But I still say it's a warship in disguise, a Trojan horse. And let me continue this conversation here. This required highly sophisticated astronomical expertise. It seems that the reptilians have become very experienced in this type of galactic warfare. And like I said before, the reptilian, Draco, Alpha reptilians are warriors. They're master and strategists in war. Referring to this heavenly body as a comet, it is very misleading. While it may have acted like a comet in terms of its intrusion into our solar system, much like what this asteroid is doing. Some people say it's an asteroid, some people say it's a comet. I say it's a warship in disguise. And it's I would warn scientists, don't count the chickens before they hatch. Be very precise on this thing. It might save humanity. While it may have acted like a comet in terms of its intrusion into our solar system, there is now clear evidence that it was actually a planet comparable in size to Earth. Technically, and they were talking about this Venus as being an ice comet at one time. Technically, Swerdlow is correct in saying it was a comet, but he then claims that this comet ultimately became the planet Venus, as I said, a fact that seems borne out in Central American mythology and by famous theorist Immanuel Velikovsky, author of Worlds in Collision. This makes sense because only a body of the size could have caused such a drastic perturbations on such large planets as Uranus and Mars and also on Earth, as we will see, and destroyed a planet the size of Maldek. Velikovsky claimed that Venus became a comet after it had ejected from Jupiter. This would contradict Swerdlow, who claimed that the ice comet entered our solar system in the orbit of Uranus, which would suggest that it probably originated, and as I said, the Kuiper Belt. Now let me explain this. The Kuiper Belt is territory of the Draconian Alpha Reptilian Empire. I know this sounds strange to you who are listening, and if and you have any doubts and you do the research yourselves, there has never been a satellite or a drone or any type of human-created satellite that has gone past the Kuiper Belt. And somehow, all those that do, the satellites, they basically disappear. See, although that seems more likely the Kuiper Belt, although that seems more likely than the Jupiter ejection theory, it would still be very rare for an object of that size and with a perfect globular configuration to inhabit the Kuiper belt, or even the Oort cloud, OORT cloud. The more one considers this phenomenon, the more likely it appears that this ice comet may have been an actual planet which was stolen from its orbit around a distant star and brought here by the Reptilians. But regardless of its origin, there is extensive astronomical and mythological evidence that the planet Venus was indeed a newcomer to our solar system and was probably Swirlow's ice comet. Let me explain also that planets can be spaceships. Let me continue here. In reconsidering the entire event, a completely new explanation presents itself. Swirlow contributed a major clue when he said that the reptilians had developed the technology to hollow out meteors and asteroids, comets, and use them as a weapon. We have already seen that they had the capability of fabricating globular planet-sized spaceships called, this is going to knock the socks off your scientific mind. They call them Death Stars. Where have we heard that before? Star Wars. Remember that. It's life imitates art, doesn't it? But now we learn that the reptilians also had the technology for using actual planets as spaceships. The moon, remember I said the moon. For using actual planets as spaceships, which they had probably learned from the Wolfen people. And remember I said in my previous video that our world does contain variable species of animals, mammals, that before those animals came to be, there were reptiles on this world. They were the original, reptiles were the original inhabitants of this world. So where did the mammalians come from? They came from off world. And that's my speculation. I'm not going to doubt they aren't. They could have come in as DNA samples, or brought in an arc form, as the moon. Remember, I have said that spaceships, to the reptilians, they can create out of small planets, hollowed out inside. Thereby the theory of the moon being hollow, which they had probably learned from the Wolfen people. Evidently, the reptilians found a lightly uninhabited candidate planet somewhere in the galaxy, probably in Draco, and hollowed it out. They then moved into its interior and essentially turned it into a spaceship under intelligent control to truly become a natural Death Star, thus complementing their already existing fabricated Death Star fleet. It is very likely that they brought with them a complete ecological system. Again, I say, how can you transfer another species onto another planet? Use a hollowed planet or arc. Ecological system along with living dinosaurs, their primary food source. Somewhere in the bowels of the planet, they then drove it across space to the solar system, our soul, our solar system. It accumulated an ice cover in its journey across the galaxy, living comfortably in the interior. They were not exposed to the radiation, extreme temperatures, and their hazards of space travel. They were able to guide the comet to destiny to destroy Maldek and cripple Mars, very possibly. They fired some sort of super weapons, perhaps a particle beam. This reminds me of the movie Star Wars. How easily that art imitates life. Beam at Maldek as it came near. There was probably the very same technique that they used to destroy Bila, Tekka, and Merok in the Lyrian system. Remember I said humans, or the human species, began in the Lyrian system. Then, as the comet approached the sun, they slowed it down and drove it into orbit around Earth, and somehow pushed the Earth farther out onto a new orbit. In other words, that sphere surrounding or circling our world, Earth, is the one I am speaking about now. As I said, it is, and I will still say to the day of my grave, that it's a satellite, hollowed out satellite. And we need to find out what we have on our environment. Then as the comet approached the sun, because it destroyed Bila, Tekka, and Merok in the Lyrian system. Then as the comet approached the sun, they slowed it down and drove it into orbit around Earth, and somehow pushed Earth farther out into a new orbit. As Earth dried out, it used to be a wet planet. It was a planet, or Earth was a planet that was surrounded by water. Its whole surface was water. Prepared it for habitation. It prepared the planet for habitation, traveling back and forth from the ice comet. Now Venus, living in the interior of Venus, they were able to remain away from the intense heat on the surface. From this we can see that George Lucas probably did have the whole story, and perhaps that is why Star Wars struck such a popular chord. Maybe, just maybe, those audiences who stood up and cheered at the premiere of Star Wars at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood in 1977 were on Maldek, or Mars in a previous incarnation. And they remembered how they stared up helplessly at the sky as the ice planet loomed ominously above and approached, and that's why they cheered when Luke Skywalker fired a fatal shot that blew the Death Star to smithereens. As I say, art imitates life. And this world's human beings have not been told everything they need to know. We've had forbidden secrets of our human species hid from us for many thousands of years. Now, maybe I have opened up a chapter which no one wants to hear, or no one of elitism. especially those in control of this world's economy and religious effects. But I will say to you, every point has an end. And it's driving it very close to what this world is going to experience. And I hope that many of you, the innocent, the remnants, survive and tell the story to your children and great-grandchildren. I hope that many of you have been hearing my conversations and my talk this night. And I'm going to talk the next time I will show in the video the reptilian colonies on Earth. Those hidden underground cities which have been around for ancient times, and no one has an explanation where they came from. Why do we have reptilian type effigies in different cultures, different civilizations around the world? In China we have the dragon. In Indonesia we have the reptilian type effigies as idols. In Egypt we have the snake, and the South American Mesopotamian civilizations like the Mayas and the Incas and the Toltecs, representations of snake and lizard beings or gods, among other things. Even our medical careers, we have the snake as a representative of the medical field. There are many other things which are pointing and have clues which point out to the study of the reptilian race on this planet, or the reptilian species. Why are we so enthused with alligators and iguanas and snakes? Why is a human being so close to those creatures? And I tell you why, because some of our DNA is entwined with the reptilian species, so that you may know this. Don't be surprised. We'll take everything into consideration. Everything is possible when everything seems impossible. So I'm going to say this one last thing. Protect the innocent, protect your families these latter days, specifically your children. Guard them, protect them, and watch. Keep vigilant. Maintain an eye in the sky. God bless all of you. Be well.